Hey folks, welcome back to the Prep Set and Go. Step number 2, planning and preparations. Really just some tips and advice on things we do in the office here when we're working with clients or customers for building websites. Now we're actually going to be building a real website throughout the entire tutorial series. It's for Zoo, group of golfers, a group I've been associated with for 13, 14 years now, and pretty much been promising them a website for the majority of that time. So it's about time we actually build something for them, I think. So I can actually use a live example. Now, one of the first things I do when preparing myself to build a website is I just create a folder. In this case, I've called it for Zoo Assets, just a folder on my desktop. And I've assembled some things I'm going to be using for building the website, just to save me a little bit of time. One of the things I've done here is I've created a folder with called content, and in that folder, I've just put some text files, basically sending out an email to people in the group saying, hey, what sort of information do we need to include here, 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 and here? Of course, large group, you get 3 people respond, right? So, yeah, as usual, I'll end up having to think about most of it myself. But long story short, the information I did gather, I've just put into some text files so I can grab it quickly and easily later on instead of digging through my email. Something else I did here is logos. Now I had a couple of logos and logo ideas, so I've just put the graphics in the folders here. I'll be using these in the actual website as we build it. Slider images. I've got pictures from different golf tournaments and that I want to use, so I've put those images into a slider images folder. They're pretty large because I'm going to be scaling them down for different things, and I'll be showing you how to do that anyways. But what I have done is I've renamed them, simple names, so that I don't have to try and type out great big long strings of connected words, which I'll guaranteed to mess up. So I've just used a simple Golf 1, Golf 2, Golf 3, Golf 4. When you're renaming your images, I really suggest keep your words as short and descriptive as possible. Maybe use numbers to define the sequence. Keep the spaces, no spaces. Keep the capital letters, the punctuation, keep that out of the picture if you can. Just make it one short word, maybe a number, just like I'm showing you right here. The more variables you introduce into the naming of your files, like spaces and hyphens and all that sort of stuff, the more possibility for errors. And finally, we've got a themed object, which is actually part of the logo. I was planning on using that for accentuating certain parts of the page. And finally, just some videos that I'm going to be using in the video slider I put into the folder here. Now I'm going to be uploading those to YouTube anyways, but I want to make sure I have the videos named correctly and all that sort of thing before I actually upload them, so that's where I store my videos. Okay, with a little bit of preparation in terms of the assets that I'm going to be using, content, images, and video, now I'm actually going to move on to what we call storyboarding. Basically, planning out, well, what kind of pages are we going to have on our website? Now, if you read through any of the documentation I've put on the site, storyboarding is simply a process of gathering your ideas and determining how things connect together. In our case, storyboarding is determining what pages we want to have on our website. And the easiest way to do that is go visit websites that are very similar, maybe even your competitors if you're building a website for a business. Go to their websites, see what types of pages they have. They obviously have a home page, contact page, they have product sales pages, team pages, whatever. If you're an organization, what sort of pages do the similar organizations to yours, what type of pages do they have on their website? So that's sort of one way. Another way is brainstorming. Like I said, I sent out an email to the people in our golf group and said, hey, what sort of content do you want on the website? Not an overwhelming response, but those that did reply had a few ideas, and I jotted those ideas down on a piece of paper. Okay. There are pages that are included in your template. So if we were to actually pop into our site, we already have an about, a catalog, contact. And funny enough, a lot of folks, when they get a template, they sort of have the idea that those are the pages they have to use. You can actually rename those pages. You can create duplicates of them. You can create many, many, many more pages. You're not stuck with what's provided in the package. So through this storyboarding process, we're going to go through just about a 5-minute exercise in determining what pages we need for our site, how to name pages properly for good search engine optimization, and we're going to just do this 5 minutes worth of preparation. And as we build our website and update our components, we'll be coming back to this storyboard page in our site, and we'll be copying information over. That way we can avoid typos. So when we're naming buttons and pages and things like that, if we proofread it ahead of time, we can just simply copy and paste it down the road, and it'll be really quick when it comes to actually updating our components. So let's get to it. In your package, you have a storyboard.html page. Just a blank page. It's a table. It has some columns and some rows. Each row is going to represent one page in your site. If you have more than the 8 pages that we have listed here, you can simply add more columns by putting your cursor in the final row and hitting the tab key on your keyboard. And you just sort of keep hitting your tab key and more rows will be added. Let me just quickly explain what each column represents. The document name column is the actual file name of the page. For example, index. We're going to put that right in here. So we're just going to copy that, paste it in there, index.html. That's the actual .html file name. Very important thing about document names are they could have a good impact, or they could have a solid impact on your search engine optimization. If you create a page and you give it a document name that includes some of the key phrases people would use when typing in a search query, then there's a good chance that page won't get a much better ranking. As a matter of fact, this was a trick that search engine optimization folks used for years as a standard practice. If you had the page name would actually be in the form of a question almost, because there were so many words in it. But I would say use a short descriptive page name. Remember the 4 rules of writing file names for use on the web is use lowercase, because servers are case sensitive. You may put a link to a page that has an uppercase letter and the page may actually have a lowercase letter and they don't match. It'll work fine on a Windows computer, but once you publish it to a web host it won't. So the rule of thumb, always use lowercase. If you have more than one word in your page name or file name, use a hyphen, such as contact confirmation. You see there's a hyphen that connects the 2 words, or an underscore. As you see here at Manage Account, we've used an underscore to connect the page names. Is there a difference? No. Hyphen or underscore will not make a difference. However, it does connect it takes the space out and connects the words. No punctuation. Punctuation is reserved for programming. If you use question marks and dollar signs and all sorts of other weird things, you could have problems. It may work, it may not work. Just stay away from punctuation. And finally, be short and descriptive. Right, we're going to go through a bit of a naming update in a few minutes here, but be short and descriptive. Okay, with that said and done, the page name, this is the actual name we're going to use for our menu buttons. Okay, just as a reference. For example, Prazoo Home. That's the page name. It's only going to be used for our menu buttons. We'll make a whole list so when we actually go to create our menus, we'll have a good idea. Now for naming menu buttons, less is more. People don't read, they scan. If somebody has to read 4 or 5 or 6 words to describe what a button is, they're going to get lost. Good chance of it. They're just going to move on. There's just too much information for their brain to absorb quickly. If you have a 2 to 3 word description at most, there's a better chance somebody's going to scan it, it's going to click and register, and they'll click on it. Okay? So word of advice, short, descriptive page names. Page title. Now this is where you can get a little bit longer. Page title, this is the thing that we'll be using for the meta title. The meta title, or the meta tag title, is probably the single most important search engine optimization piece of information on your page. It literally describes to Google or Yahoo or Bing what the content of your page is about. It's also the little bit of information that shows up in the tab of your web browser's tab bar, your tab bar. Okay, let me just explain that one. If you were to go to i3dthemes.com, right up top here in the tab, this thing up here, that's actually the meta title. Let me just explain that in a little bit more detail by viewing the source for our page. Right here, the title, website templates, web templates, WordPress themes. This tag right here, that's what I'm talking about for our page title, meta title tag. Okay, now here's the trick. If you noticed ours, it's fairly short and sweet. Web templates, or website templates, web templates, and WordPress themes. We're just quickly, briefly talk about what we do. That's it, because that's what we want the search engines to put a higher priority on, or those keywords or key phrases right there. Okay. Having great big long sentences with tons of description, that's going to kill it, because for each additional word you put into a meta title, it waters down the remaining words. We have 6 words in our meta title on i3D themes. It really just focuses on the business that we do. We don't want to tell the Google search engines every single thing we do. There's just not enough space, and it would really dilute the importance of what we want to be known for. So meta title, this is where we're going to put that information. And finally, the page layout. When we get to the point of creating new pages for our site, all we're going to be doing to create a new page is we're just going to copy or duplicate an existing page. There's no magic to it. We have 1, 2, 3 column layouts that you can use, or you can actually, for example, duplicate the about page and use it for something else. We call it retasking or repurposing, right? You can use the about page for your about page. You can also make a copy of it and use it for something else. So there's no limit to what you can do. So if you, for example, preview the about page and you go, oh, that would work really well for something else. Well, that's where you're going to write down which layout you're going to be creating your new pages from. Okay, so when it comes to making a storyboard, we kind of need a starting point. Now, what I suggested you do at the very beginning was just to take a piece of paper and write down the names of the pages that you would want in your website. And it could be whatever. It could just be an idea. You don't have to come up with the actual document or page name right now. Just an idea of what that page is going to do. Create a list. Visit your competitors. Take a look at similar sites. Make your own list. Okay, that's a starting point. The next thing you're going to need to do or want to do is take a look at the actual pages that are already in your template. And we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to preview each of these pages that come in the package, and we're going to determine if it's a page we can actually use for our existing site just the way it is, or maybe it's a page that we can retask or repurpose for some other use. Maybe we don't need a catalog page, but the layout of the catalog page would work really well for something else. Now, that being said, if a particular page has absolutely no use to us whatsoever, well, we might as well just get rid of it right now. For example, if your site includes a photo slideshow, but you have no intention of having a photo slideshow on your site, just get rid of it. That's the only thing it can do. Right, now what I did is I actually typed out the information onto a piece of paper here or onto a page for you so you can see. But this is what I got from talking to the other guys and looking at, golf organizational sort of websites. These are just some of the pages that I've seen in there, so I've made a note for myself of, okay, I need to have some pages that do this sort of a thing here. So that's my written note. Now I'm going to go through each of the pages in the site, and I'm going to sort of ask 3 questions. Can I use the page as it is? Can I rename it or retask it for some other purpose? Do I need to get rid of it? For example, the About page. I'm going to open it, and I'm going to actually, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to preview it in my browser. I'm just going to right-click, preview in my browser. There it is. And this gives me a good idea of what the layout, in other words, not the top part of the page, but the content area of the page. Okay? This gives me a good idea of what's going on here. Do I need an About page, yes or no? But hey, I like the Meet the Team thing. You know what? We're going to be having like a page with team captain information on it and stuff like that. So I can use this for the Meet the Team or About the Team Captains page. So I'm definitely going to keep it. And now I'm going to move on to my next page. So that's a keeper. Okay, catalog page. I'm just going to do one more example here for you. You'll get the idea. I'm going to preview that in my browser. And I see I've got some product things up here with click for details. I don't really know what I need that for. I've got some cool pictures here, add to cart buttons. And by the way, when you see this add to cart, that sort of a thing, yeah, you can just simply delete that from the page. So if it's one of those things like, well, I like the layout, I like the learn more button, but I don't need a buy now button, you can get rid of the buy now button and keep everything else. Although I like the way the things are laid out here with the thumbnails and whatnot, I don't really have a purpose for this page that I can think of right now. So I think I'm just going to be getting rid of the catalog page because I have no use for it. If I ever need it back, I can always drag a copy of it back in from my backup. So with my little list in hand, I'm going to go through and preview all the pages in here and see what may have a use, may not have a use, and then I'm going to start filling out my storyboard. So let me just pretend I've gone ahead and done all that, and then we can start working on the storyboard right now. And you probably want to do the same thing, is run through each of the pages in here and see if it's something you want to use for your site. Can you retask, repurpose, rename it for something else, or is it just too much and you want to get rid of it? Okay, so I've gone through and I've looked at all the pages and I've said, of all these pages, these are the ones I'm going to keep. So that's maybe what you want to do is under the document name, type in the name, or just sort of do one of these little tricks. You just sort of slowly double click on a page. Then when it's highlighted in blue, just do a Control C on your keyboard to copy it. Put your cursor over here, Control V to paste it. That's an easy way to copy and paste. Okay, so that's my document name. Now I need to take a look at my list over here and just make sure that for whatever pages in here that won't serve a purpose, I need to add them down here. So basically, take a look at my list, compare it to the pages I'm going to keep, and then make a list of new pages that I need to create. And based on my list here and of the pages I'm going to be keeping, I'll show you what I came up with. Boom, and there we go. Like the magic of video, we're done. I've added these 3 pages here, and you can see I've used all lowercase. I've used multiple words, so I've connected them with a hyphen. Right? Even this one here, I've used like 4 words, basically connecting them with all hyphens. So now I can move on to the page names. Basically, what do I want, or how do I want these pages to be represented in the menu buttons so that people can click on them and know what that page is about. Keeping in mind, I want to keep it short and sweet as well. And voila, once again we're done. Now some of this makes just perfect sense. About now equals about for zoo, that sort of thing. This one down here, I just wanted to show you the services.htm page. Well, we're actually going to use that for game schedules simply because I like the layout of the services page. Although we're not having any services, I'm just going to rename the information on there but use the layout for my game schedules. Okay? And you can see everything's sort of short and sweet. Even things like book a tea time. You know, I've just used a couple of words because if anybody's looking for any information on tea times, that's the only menu button with information on tea time, so that's the one they're going to end up clicking on no matter what. Okay, I've gone through and finished my page titles. Now, a couple things to note. I've used for zoo pretty much in every single page title. The reason being is if one of the members is looking for information or pics or photos to do with for zoo, using any combination of these words will probably bring up this page. Why? Because there's not going to be too many pages with groups named for zoo and things to do with photos, images, or pics. The other thing to note is I've used 3 variations of the same thing: pics or pictures, photos, and images. I've decided just to go with pics because that's what I think folks will type in. Because these are very different search terms that people use, all for the same thing. I'm going to even fix this one more. I'm going to get rid of the word and just use a comma. And I'm going to add to that pictures, because these are the variations that most people use to find pictures, images, pics, or pictures on the internet. And because any one of these words combined with the word for zoo will probably pull up that page. Right. So you get the idea here. Okay. If you're building a site that would rely upon local people to find you, make sure you include your city, could be your address, could be your phone number. That might be a little bit overkill. But when dealing with locals, so if you have a business and you want people locally to find you so they can come to your store, make sure you include that information in the title, because most people, when they're doing a search on, say, florists, they're going to type in florist, Washington, D.C., because that is the city that they're looking for florists in. Right? Or if they want to send flowers to somebody who's in Washington, D.C., and they want to find a florist in that city and order them online, they're going to use the name of the city when they do their search. That's pretty much the majority of the internet, because if you didn't narrow it down with the city name, you'd have florists from Hawaii all the way down to South Africa showing up in those search results. Now, the last thing we're going to do is we're just going to determine which layout or page we're going to use to create our new pages from. So these are our 3 new pages right here. We've looked through all the different pages. We've actually previewed all the different pages in the list. And from that preview, I'm going to just type in the name of my layout just as a reminder for later on, so I don't have to go back and preview all the pages later on because I've forgotten what they look like. So page 2.htm. That's just a standard 2-column page. I'm going to use that for my results. The About page, believe it or not, I'm going to use once again for the upcoming tournaments because the layout of that page works well. Although there's information, the pictures on the About page are pictures of people, I'm going to replace it with actual pictures of tournaments. And other than that, the layout for me is just perfect for that purpose for my upcoming tournaments page. And I'm going to use just a simple page 1 layout for my tee times. I just need a simple 1-column page, nothing too fancy for that one. So that's just my reminder of for later on when I go to create those pages, what page I'm going to be using to create the pages from. All right, so now we're all said and done. We're ready to rock and roll, and you're saying, well, that's great. I've just wasted 20 minutes and 40 seconds learning what I could have figured out on my own. There's one reason why we do this, and that's to avoid typos. Okay, A, it's good to be organized, but B, it's even more important to take a look at your page title, your names, and your document names, and you're going to use this to copy and paste when you go to create your titles, your names, and your document names, right? Because your web editor has a built-in spell checker, okay, you can just simply copy the information here, for example. I'm just going to use Control-C on my keyboard, right? And if I were to go to my About page, for example, and in the, actually, I'll just show you the page property method here, page properties. Under the title, we can paste that for Zoo upcoming tournaments. This little box does not have spell check, okay? So if you misspelled the name of your company or the word tournaments, that could be detrimental to your search results because if, you know, it's something like this, for Zoo upcoming tournaments, who's going to use that word, which is spelled incorrectly, to actually look for information on upcoming tournaments? It might not get any results because I've made an error, and I've seen this big time, okay? And that's one of the key reasons why I am suggesting you create a storyboard, spell check everything, make sure you don't have any typos, okay? Make sure that you've, you know, kept things short, sweet, to the point where it makes sense, and then you can just copy and paste the information from your storyboard page into the actual components when we actually get to updating them late in the later chapters. We were talking about it in the office here, and I swear I'd be a millionaire. I'm not kidding you. If I charged, say, $5 for every time we dealt with a support issue that was based on a typo, because that is the most common error. Obviously, you've done it yourself in the past, but when things don't work, it's from a typo. And I've actually seen folks saying, I'm not getting ranked for this or for that, you know, that sort of thing. And we say, yeah, your page, check your page title. There's a typo in it. And it's like, wow, big mistake. And it's one of those mistakes that could cost you months to reverse because you have to wait for search engines to come back, respy to your page, update the information, that sort of thing. Let's see if we can head them off of the pass, do it right the first time, and then get great results right off the bat.